Have you ever felt like you've done everything to heal, yet some part of you still aches like a hidden bruise? It's not weakness, it's memory. The mind may move on, but the body remembers. Somewhere deep inside, a younger version of you is still waiting for someone to notice she was scared, waiting for someone to say, "You were never too much." That girl is not a stranger. She is you. And until she is found, every attempt to rise will feel tethered to a weight you can't quite name. Inside every woman is a forgotten promise, a vow made when she was small, to be loved, to be safe, to belong. When that promise is broken, it doesn't vanish, it hides. It becomes the reason you shrink when you want to speak, the reason you doubt your worth even when others see your brilliance. Jung called it the shadow, the parts of ourselves we exile because they feel too painful to hold. But the shadow is not an enemy, it's a map. It points to what was abandoned. And if you follow it, you'll find the key to your reclaimed worth. Imagine her now, the little girl you once were. Perhaps she is sitting at a kitchen table, small hands clenched, learning not to cry. Or she's standing in a room where no one is listening, trying to be good so she won't be left behind. You may not remember the exact moment, but your body does. Each flinch at criticism, each fear of rejection, each habit of overgiving, they are echoes. They are the child saying, "See me, please." And here is the truth that changes everything. Healing doesn't begin when you become strong. It begins when you turn back and kneel to her, saying, "I'm here now." But what if the cage was never locked? The nervous system stores what words could not. That's why logic alone can't erase the fear. When you felt unseen, your body adapted, it held its breath, it braced, it hid. That wiring didn't disappear when you grew up, it just became more subtle. So when love arrives, you doubt it. When opportunities call, you hesitate. This isn't failure, it's protection. Your inner child learned to survive, but survival is not the same as living. She is ready for more, are you? The journey begins with awareness. Look at the patterns. Who do you chase? Who do you fear losing? When do you feel small? These are not random, they are stories playing out again and again. Healing means interrupting them, rewriting them. It's saying to that younger self, what happened was not your fault. You were not broken. They were not ready to hold your light. And as those words land, the body softens, the armor loosens. This is the first step, the descent. To go down is to rise later. To face the forgotten promise is to prepare to keep it. There is a symbol that will carry us through this journey, the garden. In every neglected garden, weeds grow, but beneath them the soil remembers seeds that were once planted. Your inner child is that soil. Neglect did not kill her. Pain did not erase her. She is waiting to be tended, to bloom in colors you have yet to see. This script is that tending. Each part we travel will be a hand in the earth, clearing, planting, watering. And at the end, what blooms will not just be healing, it will be worth reclaimed. So let this be the moment, the first turn inward, the first time you stop running and listen. That girl is still there behind the walls you built to survive. She is not too far, not too late, not too lost. And when you finally meet her, when you finally take her hand, you will feel it, the unmistakable sense that you have come home. But the question is, when you find her, will you be ready to stay? She waits where memory fades, in the corners of your life that feel both tender and unexplainably heavy. Healing her is not a single moment. It is a series of quiet recognitions. You see it when you catch yourself apologizing for existing. You feel it when a sudden wave of sadness rises without cause. This is the child asking to be acknowledged, not shamed, not fixed, just seen. And when you finally see her, something shifts. The world does not change, but the way you stand in it does. The Jungian path calls this integration. The shadow is not destroyed, it is embraced. To reclaim your worth, you must step into the forgotten rooms of your psyche and light the corners where no one ever looked. There you meet fragments, fear, longing, anger, innocence. Some will make you flinch, others will make you ache with recognition. They were never flaws, they were simply unmet needs. Needs turned into masks, masks turned into habits, habits mistaken for personality. but beneath them is something pure. She has been carrying your worth the whole time. Picture this, a small wooden box buried beneath layers of dust. Inside is not gold, but a note. One line written by the girl you once were, "I was always enough." It's faded, but it's there. And yet for years you traded it for approval. You forgot that worth is not given, it's remembered. That's why trauma feels like theft. It aches nothing new from you, it only hides what was already yours. Healing is not adding, it's uncovering. Each time you refuse to betray yourself, you dig closer to that note. Each time you pause instead of pleasing, you remove another layer of dust. But here's the confrontation. Are you willing to face the cost of unlearning? Healing often demands that you grieve not only the pain but the years you spent away from yourself. It asks you to feel the ache of birthdays celebrated while feeling invisible, the silent dinners where no one asked what you needed, the relationships where your loyalty outweighed your joy. This grief is holy. It is not weakness. It is the soil softening so the roots can breathe. And sometimes the first bloom is a tear. Pause now and ask, when did you first learn to be small? It might come as a flash of memory or a subtle knowing. A slammed door, a raised eyebrow, a room full of people where you became silent because it felt safer than speaking. These moments do not just pass, they imprint. Jung spoke of complexes, clusters of emotion that orbit around these wounds. They live in the unconscious, pulling at behavior, and yet they are not permanent. They can be rewritten when brought to light. Awareness loosens the knot. Curiosity untangles it. Compassion threads it back together. In this work, shame often appears. It whispers, "Why weren't you stronger? Why couldn't you stop it?" But here is the truth no one told you. A child is not meant to be strong. A child is meant to be safe. The fact that you adapted is not weakness, it is brilliance. You became watchful, resilient, capable of reading the slightest shift in mood. Those were survival skills, but now they no longer serve you as they did. Now they are walls where doors could be. Healing is not tearing them down in rage. It is opening them with care, inviting the younger self to step into the present. So step closer. Imagine her looking at you, hesitant but hopeful. She does not need perfection, she needs presence. When you let her speak, she tells you what no one else could, what she feared, what she dreamed, what she needed but never received. And slowly, those unmet needs become your compass. They point toward boundaries, toward self-trust, toward freedom. This is not fast work, but it is real. And every step reminds you, the woman you are becoming is not someone new. She is the girl who finally felt safe enough to grow. And when she grows, everything changes. How you love, how you speak, how you choose. But to reach that, something deeper must break open. Are you ready to meet the parts of you you've spent years avoiding? The deepest healing often hides behind the doors we are most afraid to open. Those doors hold the echoes of moments too overwhelming to process when they happened. Moments when love felt unsafe, when silence became survival, when your joy was met with disapproval. And yet, behind those same doors is also the treasure, the unbroken thread of your worth. It is not that she, the child, was fragile. It is that she carried a light too bright for an unprepared world. Healing is not giving her a new story. It's giving her back the pen. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. To individuate, you must meet not only your light but your shadow. The shadow is not evil, it's simply the parts of you no one taught you to love. The anger you swallowed, the sadness you numbed, the creativity you silenced to be acceptable. Each is a seed buried deep. And when the soil of your awareness softens, they push upward, demanding to be known. They are not here to shame you, they are here to make you real. To remind you that wholeness is not perfection, it is inclusion. Feel this truth, you are not broken, you are layered. Each reaction, each fear, each overcompensation is a map. The perfectionism, it may be the child trying to earn love, the people pleasing, the child trying to keep peace, the fear of conflict. the child who learned that safety meant silence. To meet these patterns without judgment is to say to that younger self, "You did the best you could, and now you no longer need to protect me from ghosts." This is how the nervous system begins to trust again, not by force, but by safety. But here is where many stop. They become aware of the wounds but hesitate to feel them. Feeling them means risking the grief that has been waiting for years. And grief feels endless, doesn't it? But grief is not endless, it is a river. When you let it flow, it moves, it clears, it teaches. It tells you the pain was real, but it does not define you. Each tear is the body releasing what words could not. Each quiet sob is the soul saying, "I mattered then and I matter now." To feel is to free. Pause here. Ask yourself, what would happen if you no longer ran from sadness? The answer often surprises. Sadness, when embraced, loses its power to paralyze. It becomes tenderness. It softens the harshness you have toward yourself. It makes room for joy because it clears the debris of old hurts. And here lies the paradox. The more you allow yourself to feel the old wounds, the stronger you become. Not because the world is kinder, but because you are finally on your own side. You are no longer abandoning the child, you are protecting her. You are finally saying, "I will not leave you again." This is where the wise woman archetype emerges. She is not the rescuer of others, but the keeper of her own heart. She walks into her own darkness, carrying a lamp not to destroy the shadows, but to understand them. This lamp is compassion. It does not erase pain, but it transforms it. It says, "This too belongs, and if it belongs, it no longer controls me." Every time you extend compassion to your younger self, you grow roots. Roots that make you steady when life shifts. Roots that make you unshakable when others cannot see your worth. And as these roots deepen, something miraculous happens. Your boundaries strengthen without guilt. Your voice softens but does not disappear. You begin to choose what aligns with you rather than what pleases others, because the child who once begged for approval is finally heard. She doesn't need the world to clap anymore. She needs only your steady presence. And from that steadiness, worth rises, not as something fragile, but as something undeniable. Can you feel her stirring, ready to step forward? There comes a point in every healing journey when the quiet inner work begins to ripple outward. It is subtle at first, a pause before saying yes, a calm refusal where there used to be guilt, a sudden realization that the weight of old stories feels lighter. This is the confrontation's turning point. You are no longer only looking back. You are beginning to shape what comes next. And this is where worth is not just remembered, it is reclaimed. The girl you once were is no longer just a memory. She is becoming the foundation of the woman you are. Think of the nervous system as a river. When you were small, its flow was disrupted by stones, fear, shame, rejection. Those stones forced the water to bend, twist, hide underground. Healing is like lifting those stones one by one. Each time you soothe a trigger, you remove a weight. Each time you honor your feelings instead of dismissing them, you open a channel. Eventually, the water finds its course again. You do not have to push the river. You simply give it permission to flow. This is why safety matters more than speed, because rushing the current only stirs the mud. Now something powerful begins to emerge. As the child feels safe, she releases the old bargain she made for love. She stops begging. She stops overperforming. She stops shrinking. And what rises is a quiet, steady self-worth that does not seek permission. Jung would call this integration, the self made whole, the conscious and unconscious meeting in the middle. And here's the wonder. You start to trust your own instincts. You notice what feels nourishing. You step away from what drains you. You sense that your worth is not up for debate, and it shows. But the work is not done without confrontation. Healing asks you to make choices you once avoided. It might mean stepping back from relationships that echo old wounds. It might mean saying no to a career path that rewards your silence instead of your gifts. It might mean admitting that the life you built was partly constructed to protect the child, not to fulfill the woman. This can feel like loss, but loss in this context is clearing. The garden cannot thrive if the soil is choked by weeds. And you are the gardener now. What if the voice you silenced was the one that knew the way? This question matters because deep down you have always known what you needed. You knew when you were lonely. You knew when you were dismissed. You knew when you were hungry for gentleness. That knowledge never left, it simply went quiet when it wasn't safe. But now you are listening. You are creating the safety that was missing. You are building an inner home so stable that even when the world is loud, you can hear the small, clear voice that says, "This is enough. You are enough." As the wise woman archetype strengthens, the patterns start to dissolve. Where there was fear, there is now clarity. Where there was shame, there is acceptance. And perhaps the most profound change is that you stop fighting yourself. No more war between who you are and who you were told to be. Instead, there is a weaving together, a tapestry of all your ages, each thread honored. The girl, the maiden, the healer, the sovereign woman, they all stand together. And from that unity, you move differently. You choose differently. You are no longer only healing. You are leading yourself. These are not distant ideals, they are lived moments. A quiet cup of tea without guilt. A boundary held with grace. A sudden laughter that feels like sunlight breaking through clouds. Each one is proof thaw. Worth is not an idea. It is a lived experience. It's felt in the body, carried in the voice, reflected in the eyes. And the question that remains now is this. When the world tests you, will you remember the child you promised to protect, and will you stand unshaken? The ascent begins quietly, almost without notice. One day, the heaviness that used to follow you everywhere is lighter. The self-doubt that once ruled your choices now pauses, uncertain of its power. This is when healing moves from something you practice to something you embody. The little girl you carried is no longer trembling. She is standing beside you, hand in hand. And as she stands, the world feels different, not because it changed, but because you did. The inner sanctuary you have built is unshakable. This is where embodiment lies. It's in the way you speak with more clarity, in the way you take up space without apology. It's in the subtle strength of choosing what honors you and letting go of what doesn't. Jung described individuation as becoming who you were always meant to be, not by adding more, but by removing what was never yours. All the masks, all the roles, all the agreements to stay small, they fall away. What remains is essence. What remains is the woman who knows her worth, not as a concept, but as a state of being. Notice how the nervous system mirrors this change. Where once there was hypervigilance, there is calm. Where the heart raced at the thought of conflict, it now holds steady. Healing has rewired the body to understand safety, not as the absence of threat, but as the presence of self-trust. You trust yourself to walk away. You trust yourself to stay. You trust that no matter what, the voice of the inner child, the voice you once ignored, is now the most important counsel you keep. And that trust makes you radiant. But embodiment also asks for action. Worth must be lived, not just felt. It means saying yes to opportunities without apologizing for wanting more. It means ending cycles of self-betrayal by keeping promises to yourself. It means daring to rest without guilt, to love without shrinking, to create without asking permission. These are no longer distant dreams. They are the daily proof that you have reclaimed what was yours. And even when fear returns, because it will, you meet it differently. You remind yourself, fear is not the enemy, abandoning yourself is. Pause for a moment. What would life look like if you no longer bargained for love? This question changes everything because the answer is simple. Life would look like choice. You would choose partners, work, friendships that reflect your truth, not your wounds. You would forgive not to appease, but to free yourself. You would walk into rooms without scanning for danger because the safest place is within you. This is not fantasy. It's the natural result of inner work. The girl who once hid is now the woman who stands, and nothing is louder than quiet self-assurance. The The wise woman now becomes the guardian. She no longer searches for validation, she curates her world. She plants gardens in places once barren. She opens her arms to what is good and closes the door on what is not. She is not unkind, she is clear. And her clarity is magnetic. Those who could not see your worth fall away, and those who meet you with respect remain. This is not loss, it's alignment. And with each aligned choice, the child inside smiles, knowing she is safe and finally home. This journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to the girl who once loved freely, to the instincts that once guided you, to the worth that was always there. You were not broken, you were interrupted. Now the story continues, and you are both author and character. So the question becomes not if you are worthy, but how boldly you will live now that you know you are. Because when the world asks for proof, you will not speak, you will embody. And in that silence, everyone will know. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.